Well, it's been a while since I've done some videos, and there's no sinister reason for that. No bad reason at all. Actually, I'm just going to clean the windscreen here. Right. Lovely morning, look. No, there is no sinister reason. The real reason is simply that I've been away a little bit. I've been busy in France, and I've actually been extremely busy here with the development of this number of houses and flats that we're building here. And as you can see, there's a lot going on here. I'll walk around in a minute and maybe and have a look. Now, the real introduction to this is that one thing I used to hate. I used to watch a lot of movies, like most people, I guess. I don't watch many now. And I read a lot, and I read a lot of books. And one of the things I used to hate were stories that started off, and they were quite exciting, and then suddenly they went back. You know, they started off, you know, maybe the guy was in his 50s or something was happening, I don't know, and then suddenly it went back to when he was a young boy, and the whole story then developed back to the point where the film started. And it always annoyed me, that type of start. You know, I'd rather see the film start at the beginning and run all the way through. That's just the way I looked at things. But actually, I'm now doing that because I'm starting here, but I'm going to go backwards because I've got some film that I've been taking over the last month or so involving some of my cars, and I didn't create a video because I was not around, and I was busy in one thing and another. So I'm now going to play them, but I had this little introduction simply because I hadn't done anything for a while. Now, I've been busy with this car. This car's been to a couple of events and various things. I think we'll have that on the video in a second. And also, I've got the Mercedes here going in for a MOT tomorrow, actually. So I'm hoping that's going to be all right. That's going into Anglian Vehicle Services, and I'm hoping it'll be all right. But I did have the Crossfire into Anglian Vehicle Services a couple of days ago, actually, and I took it in for a service because I hadn't had it serviced or anything, or looked at professionally since I bought it. And they told me that they actually weren't really going to service it because they found the service book, which I hadn't found, and they decided that you know, as it had a service fairly recently, and only done a small number of miles since then, and the oil looked really good in the engine and everything, that they would just give it a complete safety check and everything, instead of changing all the oil again. So that was good of them. So they actually had the car up on the ramp and everything, and they went through it all, and they found nothing wrong with it apart from one a bit of play, I think, in a bush in one of the rear suspensions. In the rear suspension, which they said is just an advisable issue, nothing that's needs doing really. Other than that, they did sort out my exhaust system for this car, because I said to them that now and again it thumps underneath, and I suspected it was something to do with the new exhaust system which was fitted to this car not long before I bought it. So they said they welded a new bracket and they moved the heat shield without getting underneath the car. I can't really see what they did, but I'm sure they did the right thing, obviously. And that's all that happened. So the car is, in their opinion, fine. Nothing wrong with it at all. I have to say that driving it yesterday, which was 24 hours after I had it back, I went over some large potholes, which we get a lot of around here, and there was a bit of a thumping from underneath again, and I'm not sure whether this was still the exhaust, but I'll see how it goes. Anyway, let's just go back in time again. So I'm going to go back a month or so and see some of the video that I recorded. Okay, well, it's early in the morning here. And look at the state of this car. This car actually sitting here typifies to me the problem with owning lots of different cars. There are a number of people that I know in garages or have a knowledge of old cars, or any car really, I guess, who have given me advice or worked on this car and other cars that I have. And yet, I still cannot solve some of the problems. Now, just to see whether or not I have a problem, I'm going to try starting this car. Now, about a week ago, I started it, and the instant I turned the key, it fired up and ran perfectly well. Yesterday, I tried starting it, and it just refused to start. It would not start. In fact, I gave up after maybe 30 seconds, I suppose, of churning it over, because I didn't want to run the battery down. That in itself would tell you that there is some problem. But I'm going to try again. Now, I'll pull the choke out, which is what I did yesterday. I'm going to put the clutch in. And, oops, that's on the other side, and I'm going to turn the key. Here we are. Oh, well, okay. There we go. Put the choke in. Now, if somebody could tell me what the problem is, I would be really pleased. Yesterday, this car refused to fire. I turned it off, I left it. Today, it just fired right away. There has to be an explanation. I mean, it's not normal. The weather conditions are identical. The time of day was about the same. I did the same things. I pulled the choke out. I pushed the throttle down slightly, turned the key. This time it fired instantly. Yesterday it wouldn't start at all. Just turn this off. Oh, I keep going to the wrong side because the car is unreliable and makes it difficult to use it on a regular basis. Makes it difficult actually to use it at all, because when I take the car out and I stop, even if it's just to fill up with fuel, I get back to the car, it won't start. Nobody has been able to tell me what was wrong with it. I get a lot of, well, I'm not too sure, well, could be, I've had a lot of explanations. Now, that's not unreasonable. But these are people who have had a lot more experience than I have a lot more knowledge than I have on cars. So, for somebody like me who is trying to keep these cars going and run them, what are we to do? I don't know. That's what gets me depressed with these old cars. The fact that basically the knowledge of the technology, this knowledge is becoming less. I have a lot of people who, when I'm having issues with, say, the Volvo or the Aventime. Oh, we'll plug it in. Even my local garage now say, we'll just plug it in. But in the old days, people could diagnose an issue on a car with a combination of their knowledge and their experience of the technology of internal combustion. It's becoming less and less so now. It's natural, I guess. But that's not the issue I'm really making. The issue is that because it is becoming natural, that it's becoming less, it's becoming also increasingly more difficult to run these cars, because unless you have this knowledge yourself, and of course you, to a certain extent you do, but I don't spend all day working with cars. I haven't got a lifetime of experience working with this technology. I've had a fleeting experience of it, and that fleeting experience is not deep enough for me to be instantly knowledgeable on why a car won't start. And the dangerous part is if I come up with an idea of what it could be, I could be probably wildly wrong, which sets me off on the wrong foot anyway. That's why you need experts, people who spend their life or most of their time involved in that subject. This applies to anything, not just cars, obviously. Doctors, vets, I don't know, bricklayers. Everyone becomes an expert when they know a little bit about a subject. So we can talk about things, but it doesn't mean that we can actually solve all the problems or identify them. Anyway, I'll try this car again. So now it's running well. Right, I'm going to leave it till tomorrow, and I will try it again tomorrow and see what happens. I won't do anything with it, and I'll do the same thing tomorrow and see what the result is. Right, so what happened there? Well, I took the Aventime down to the garage because they were going to read. Well, what happened was I had the service light come on when we were in France, and it kept telling us we needed a service. Well, obviously the car had a service recently, so I took it back to the garage that had done the service, and I told them, or asked them if they could get rid of the light, which they did, but they said there was a light coming on now with an error. So I said I'd drop it into them, and which I did today, and they got rid of that error light. But at the same time, I asked them if they could fix the re-secure the inner liner on one of the front wheels, which had dropped down, a plastic liner, and it was rubbing against the wheel, especially when you did a sharp turn. So they did that. They refixed that. And the issue was that apparently they read the car and it came up with loads of faults, as you probably heard the guy say. I guess that's something to do with the battery being taken off or something, or maybe it was some historical faults, I don't know. But there's nothing else seemed to be on there at the moment. They cleared all that lot and it seems to be okay. It certainly drives well. But the issue is here with these cars is to the amount of effort that you have to make to keep them, and even when you don't drive them a lot. Now I understand that many of these issues are related to the fact that the cars are not driven regularly. I understand that. But many of them are not. Many of them are just faults that happened and are multiplied by the number of cars that you have. So, if you had one car, that would be okay. The faults would happen maybe once every few months, or maybe once every 6 months. But when you've got 7 or 8 or 9 cars, the odds are you're going to have faults continually, and these are faults that you have to deal with. The question is, what is the value and the worth of the cars that you're keeping and spending money and time on to keep going? Well, as I said on many occasions, you've got cars like this little Amy or Ami, and now people say to me, why am I calling it Ami maybe, and not Ami, my friend? I'm not French, that's a simple answer. And, the French call it what it is, Ami. And I'm English, and I call it what it is, Amy. I guess partly because I had my first Citroen Amy back in the late 70s. It was one like this, but it was a saloon version, not an estate. I drove many miles in it. Went to the south of France in it from England. Yes, this car is just virtually original. I mean, I've had it 5 years maybe now, I don't know, something like that, 4 or 5 years. And I've done nothing in the engine, but I haven't even cleaned it, I'm ashamed to say. And it was how I got it, probably how I got it was a little bit cleaner. But it's a pretty original car. And all these cars are not really worth much. I look at collections that other people have, and they are extensively more valuable than mine, certainly, but not that value is the issue that I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the care and maintenance and work that's involved to keep the cars in as good and road-worthy condition as you can, and what you get back in return for all that effort. Now, there are a lot of people that have not a lot of people. There are some people that have cars that are worth a lot of money. Maybe they've got 2, maybe they've got 1, maybe they've got half a dozen. And, I'm talking about cars that are worth astronomical sums, really, over £100,000. And you just wonder, why? Why are they worth that? At the end of the day, there's nothing that they give other than the fact that somebody else is prepared to pay that money. So it's just a place to put money. And their prime reason for being, and I think the prime reason for owning, is the fact that they are valuable. People put a large sum of money into that car, and that's a large sum of money sitting there. That isn't a car as such. It is a valuable item, and it's a holding pot for your cash. All right, people will disagree with me, but basically that's what it has to be. You don't put 150, 200,000 or more. I mean, people pay vast sums of money into cars. To have them to drive? There are cars that are a fraction of that drive as well. No, they're mainly they could be status symbols, I guess, as well. But basically, they're cars that's where it's a vessel for putting your money in. But the cars that I have, and lots of other people like me have, their value is fairly insignificant. It doesn't come into the equation, because when you look at the amount of money that you spend on a car, there's like this 2CV, for example, and what you would get back if you sold it, it doesn't justify the outlay. I mean, for example, I've had this Mercedes 20 years, and I have spent a small fortune on it. And like most of these luxury cars that were expensive to buy people basically enjoyed them. They were passed on to a second owner and a third owner and a fourth owner, and each of those second and third and fourth owners, in the main, in turn, spent less money on them because they are expensive to run. The car's value dropped rapidly, which meant that there was no point in spending money on it. It was cheaper to buy another luxury car because the luxury cars were cheap second-hand, still are. But I've spent a lot of money on this. And this car, I've spent a small fortune in a way. Well, not as much as Mercedes, I'm pleased to say, but no, I've spent a lot of money on this car. And what's it worth? Well, actually, its value's gone down over the last 10 years, probably. I mean, I've had this car for 15, 16 years, but in the last 10 years, its value is just going down. I wouldn't say it's nosediving, but it is going down. All these cars that I'm talking about, that I own, they come and go with fashion, and they're not a place to put money. They're just basically a reflection of popularity in a certain group of people. I mean, there were at one time a lot of people that liked and wanted cars like this particular Dodge, and those people are becoming few and far between now. They're mainly people my age, and in years to come, not many years to come actually, I think this car will dip to its bottom, and then perhaps it will start to climb. But I actually have doubts on that because of the way the legislation with vehicles is concerned and the move away from combustion engines. I think also the people that another thing that many of the pundits don't seem to realize is that the people that supplied the parts, the people that were interested in the scrapping these cars and keeping parts for them, obviously the American cars in America, but to a certain extent in the UK on American cars. Recently, the part supply has been tremendous. You know, you could buy NOS stock, you could buy scrap bits, you could buy a lot of stuff that's been remanufactured, but that's going to dry up, I'm sure of it, because the demand, as the demand goes down, is one aspect, but the people who are interested in spending their time getting bits and parts for all these old cars, they're declining, these people, the number of these people. It's just a shrinking and dying hobby, really. So there's no money involved in these cars. The money is the expenditure that people like me are prepared to make to enjoy the hobby of owning and running these old cars. And that is different from people who buy expensive cars. And there is a break point. I mean, you know, what can I say? We could easily start talking about the break point. We could say, in terms of England, we could sort of saying that anything up to around 10,000 quid is something that many people have the ability to indulge in, and that's what it is, an indulgence of expenditure. But once you start getting into the 20 and 30,000 and then climbing, you know, up to the 100,000, you're talking about an investment. That's a lot of money for anyone. There's very few people who can afford to put that much money into a car and not consider the fact that they need, perhaps at one time, or would like at some time, to get that money out, because that's what it amounts to. The amount of money, you buy a car up to around 10 grand, a classic car, you spend money on it, you're not expecting that car is going to give you a return or a profit. But if you're going to put 25, 30, 40,000 pounds in a car, most people would consider that they need to get that money out again. And then you buy a car like this, and there's no way you're going to get, to be honest with you, no way you're going to get your purchase price out of it at the moment. And I don't see it ever changing. These cars are amazing. I mean, this is an amazing car. As a car, I think it's beautiful. It is what it is. It may be outdated now, out of style maybe. You know, even the wood is not fashionable anymore. The saloon 3-box sort of section thing, big bonnet, and you know, cabin and big boot, and it's an old-fashioned thing now, but it's still a desirable car. I think it's a lovely car, but what's it worth? Nothing. What return would you get on it? Nothing. The minute you buy it, you've lost money, because you're going to start spending money on it, even if you have to buy new tires. In fact, I mean, 4 new tires, practically you've come close to what the car's worth. Well, that's not quite true, but you know. But if you buy one like this, which is in absolutely excellent condition, I mean, it's hard to say that I could have bought one of these cars in better condition than it is. It's in as good condition as I could expect to buy one, and yet, what did it cost me? My scooter was more money than this. My new electric bike cost more money than this. That tells you something, doesn't it? Tells you a lot. But it's a liability, because everything I spend on it is money gone, and the more you use it, the more likely it is that you're going to have to spend money on it. The less you use it, the less it justifies spending any money on it. So what's the point of having it? That's the question. That's what keeps coming into my mind. And I'm not too sure what the answer is. I really am not. I find it easy to say, well, the answer is I enjoy having them, like thousands of people like me. Why do I have so many? Well, I'm greedy. I'm indulging because I can. That's probably the truthful answer. But there must be a psychological answer, and the psychological answer must be in the realm of, well, I'm fulfilling a need, and it's a need of caring for these vehicles, and convincing myself that I'm doing a good thing by keeping them in this good condition, spending money on them, and perhaps they're in limited numbers now, and somewhere down the line other people may be pleased and take advantage of the fact that I cared for this car. But actually, I think most of that is untrue. Look at this van. We've had this van. We bought it brand new in 2002. I don't think it looks dated. I don't think it looks old. I don't think it looks in bad condition. We've had it all those years. We've only used it for taking dogs to the forest. The seats had covers on until recently. They're in absolutely mint condition, even the driver's seat. The van has had very little problems. We've replaced a few wheels and had some problems that reoccurring with the motor on that window. The only real problem that we get with it, or have with it, is the gearbox, where the synchro mesh has gone in a second. What's it worth? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. You know, why would we sell it, buy another one? No, we wouldn't. What do we do with it when we don't need it anymore? We'll probably almost give it away to somebody. It's dreadful, really. I don't think people collect vans as certainly not in the same numbers as they collect cars. Actually, I think probably with this van we would, well, possibly we would do something else with it. We're coming to the stage where we won't need it as a dog van anymore, so we could actually sort of convert it to almost a sort of camping van or something. But we'll see. So, all these cars, and I'm still spending money on them, and still having to spend time to get them fixed. I took the Aventime in today, and that was a small amount of money, but we managed to get the inner liner on the wheel arch fixed. Found out that there wasn't really anything wrong with the error codes that had come up, and I've got the Crossfire is in, having its airfoil painted yet again, and then the Mercedes is going in. you know, stupidly to have a few little dents and a tiny bit of rust fixed on it. Why am I doing that? Well, because I've spent so much money and time on that Mercedes, I'm not going to stop now. So I'm really interested to hear why other people have so many cars. And I don't mean lots of cars. I mean, to be honest with you, having one classic car as well as your own personal daily driver car is a lot. I mean, you've gone out and somebody's gone out and bought a second car just for the fun of it. But there are a lot of people that buy one and then of course they buy another and they don't want to sell the one they had. So it's interesting, really. One of the reasons perhaps I'm talking about all this is that I don't get so much time at the moment to drive them. I've got all this building work here going on, and it's a very stressful ongoing project, which is at a very crucial stage because we are setting out obviously all the levels, laying out all the drain runs, and that's a very stressful time for everyone here. We've had to alter a lot of the design ideas for the drains. Well, that was a pointless little talk about cars because it really wasn't going anywhere, but it's just the result of me questioning, I guess, all these cars that I have, and I guess I see them every day now next to the backdrop of this building, which is just beginning to be put back together again now, and that's pretty depressing. But having the cars is questioning my sanity, really, because I just find them a real problem. Anyway, right, well, I've just been out and about with the in the Volvo, and the experience has kind of summed it up for me. You know, having all these cars is exciting, I think, for me, because this is my take on my cars, because I kind of reinvent, or rediscover rather, these cars every time I go out in them. Because I don't go out in the same car every day, and some cars I don't go out in that often. When I do go out in them, it's an exciting and adventurous occupation or adventure. I don't know. I went out in this Volvo. I mean, I've had this Volvo, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now, maybe more, no more. And it's like a new car to me. I really actually enjoyed it. That's really, I don't know. Is that the reason that I enjoy having so many cars? I'm beginning to think it is. I don't take them for granted, that's for sure. And whereas if you have one car, I guess, you know, you get used to it. Because if I drive one car all the time, I become so used to it, and I'm familiar with it, and you just jump in it and just go from A to B. But I got in this, and I was, I was listening to the sounds of the engine. I was listening to the sounds that the car was making, creaking or whatever. I was conscious of the acceleration and how it cornered and everything else. And I found it really good. I was thinking, oh, this is a really nice car, handles well, and steering's very positive on it, considering it's done nearly 200,000 miles. Suspension is excellent. I've never replaced any of it's the original suspension, original steering box. The gearbox has had work on it, but basically it's pretty well the same car. It's done 200,000 miles, and yet it feels really tight. Everything feels tight about it. It handles extremely well. Whenever you turn, it just goes where you point it, and it's really nice. And then I suppose, maybe tomorrow or the next day I'll go out in the Mercedes and have the same experience and take the 2CV out again when I finally get that sorted out. What's wrong with it? I'm gonna try starting that. I think. Actually, I think I'll try that now. Yeah. So it's been a couple of days now since I last started this car. Okay. So what happened was about 2 weeks ago, this car wouldn't start. It was a hot day. I came out here like this, started the car. It wouldn't start. I tried to start it. It wouldn't start. I left it for a couple of days, went back, turned the key, started instantly. First time, it fired. Left it for another couple of days, tried it again, fired again. And here we are. We're going to try it again. Right, so I'm going to pull the choke out, and I'm going to give it a little bit of throttle, and I'm going to turn the key, if I can. And it started again, first time. Okay. Push the choke in a bit here. Actually, I'm going to push it in all the way. Yes. Okay, now, the only thing I can say on this, the car hasn't moved, so I haven't driven the car anywhere. But it wouldn't start at all. The first time, a couple of weeks ago, the only thing I could say was that on that occasion, it was an extremely hot day. So was it that, there was evaporation, no petrol. The car wasn't hot, obviously it hadn't been driven. But it wouldn't start. Now it's starting instantly. I think what I'll do here is, I think tomorrow I'll take this car, start it up, assuming it starts again, and I'll take it out for a drive, and then turn the engine off and see if it starts when the engine's hot, because there's something funny going on here, and I just don't know. I mean, I can't take it to a garage like this and say the car won't start when it starts instantly. Anyway, I think I would enjoy this car going out. Shut that down. I haven't been out in it for about a month. Okay, 2CV. Oh, okay, what the hell. While I'm here, I might as well start up the little Amy, or Amy, as I'm being told all the time. Right, so we'll put the choke out on this, and get it in and fire it away. Right, now this car's its normal self. Very, very reluctant to start. This is not uncommon for this car of mine. Fired there. There we go, started. Well, that's just normal for this car. Nothing unusual. It will start, once it's warm, it'll start pretty easy when it's warm. And then if I run it for a day, drive it around a bit, and the next day or the day after, it'll start a lot easier. It's only like this when it's been left for some time. What's the reason for that? Well, I have no idea. I have no idea. But the car is consistent in as much that it's performing for me much the same as it has been ever since I've owned it. Whoops. So I've got the choke in anyway. So I'm not concerned with the fact that it doesn't start too well. It's always been like this. But once you get it going and warmed up, you can go somewhere, stop, and come out. The car will start pretty easy. Okay, I think I'll just let this tick over for a bit, let it run for a little while, and get some oil circulating in it. Right, well, I've got the crossfire back, and the little spoiler here, the little airfoil, has been painted again. I think the explanation that I've got from the body shop people this time is pretty definitive, and that is that this is a composite. It's some composite material, and there was basically air in it. Now, when I bought the car, there were quite big bubbles on it. This was not from rust or corrosion, it was from air that was underneath. And in fact, when the car was in the sun, obviously they were getting bigger. So they stripped it right down to the basic material. They took everything off and primed it properly and repainted it. And then two little small bubbles appeared. So they've done the same thing again. They feel fairly confident, and I'm confident they've done a good job. And we're just hoping now that that will be it, and there won't be any more bubbles coming through. So the rest of the car is now okay, and apart from it being dirty, it's about as good as I think you can get it for a car that of this age, of this number of years. I mean, personally, I think it's beautiful. And that brings me to a point, I guess, that, and it's the same point that I keep talking about, of cars that are of less value than the ones which people are paying vast sums for. Now, if I look at this car, I can compare this car actually to many cars, and I'd be criticised, as I know, and that's fine, because in this world there's always somebody out there who's going to criticise whatever you say. But this car is comparable to me. I had a couple of, I had 4 Celicas, right? Okay, so this is a very similar car to the Celica. Had the same sort of feel about it, and short back, long bonnet, sporty feel. This had the same, not a dissimilar look actually inside. Certainly to the early Celica that I had, the Series 1. And I get the same sort of feeling of joy, I guess, sitting in this car that I did with that car, sort of feeling of sportiness, and it drives in a similar way. Obviously I would imagine that a Celica of that era now, if one was a good one that survived, it would have a better value than this car in reality. Though this is a better car. I mean, technically, this is a better car. This is a similar car to a E-Type Jag. Why is it not? It is. It's many similarities. With the shape of the back and the lifting hatch and the narrow hatch. I mean, this car's got a lot of similarities to an E-Type Jag, but the difference in price is unbelievable. I mean, this car, if you're talking, let's just say round figures and say this car's got a value of $5,000, an E-Type Jag would start probably at 50 grand. It doesn't, it's not. But of course, lots of people will make the argument of why there's such a difference. Of course, it's an E-Type Jag, and but what is, at the end of the day, it's a car. It's just it's just an object made out of metal and glass, and depending on the era, a varying degree of plastic. The performance to this car is not an awful lot different to an E-Type Jag. I would think they're very similar. I would think that this car is probably better built than an E-Type Jag. I would say it handles as well, equal to, and in some respects possibly better. In terms of comfort, I don't know. I wouldn't think there'd be much in it. So why would... It's just perception, isn't it? It's what people want. And this is the thing with cars. So somebody like myself, and there are a lot of people like me who've got 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 10 cars. As individual cars, none of them being worth an awful lot of money. Possibly as a collection they'd become interesting. Interesting certainly for somebody to come and, look at them all in a group. But as individual cars, they don't have much value. So why is this? I think the thing that is becoming apparent to me is that the fact that you are prepared to purchase and maintain a car, an older car, that has no value really, has no advantages in terms of practicality or performance, has even no advantage in terms of desirability. That's an amazing fact. And you actually are maintaining old technology or old design, really, for other people. Because if it wasn't for people like myself, who are spending considerable amounts of money to keep these cars in tip-top condition and to keep them running, if it wasn't for people like me, these cars wouldn't exist now, because they have no value. There's no reason for them to exist. And the cars that have high value, and the point is that people, I think, tend to miss, is that the only reason they exist is because they are perceived to have a high value. Because basically, once a car has a value in it that exceeds an amount that can quite easily be written off, the value is what that is the value. The cash value is what is the value of the car. So the value of this car is not cash. It's actually desirability, whereas the car that has massive value, its overriding value is its actual monetary value. I don't know if that makes sense. So, and it gives it desirability. So this car hasn't got desirability because it's worth money. It's got desirability because some people actually like it, enjoy it for what it is. But an E-Type Jag that may be worth 80 or 100,000 pounds has instantly got value and desirability simply because it's worth that much money that somebody paid for it. In other words, it's got that much value in it. So somebody would be able to buy it, pay 80,000, with the knowledge that almost they can guarantee they would be able to recover that money. And the likelihood is, if they keep telling people that it's worth 80,000, and it is perceived that the value actually increases, it will increase. Whereas the value for a car like this, which is so low, the only direction it's going to go is down. Now, none of what I've just said probably makes sense, but it seemed realistic when I was saying it. So I think I'd better stop here. But anyway, I am pleased with this car, regardless of what it is worth from a money point of view, because it looks and feels really nice. Oh, and another thing I did on it actually before I took it into to the garage to have the spoiler done. I did the seat a bit. I put some black leather polish on it, leather restorer. It's not perfect, actually it's come off a bit now. I need to do it again. But it's the alternative to doing that silver panel. Yeah. Anyway, that's the Crossfire. Right, well, look at that. Beautiful sky. So it's early in the morning here. And Dodge is going to a display in the town. The Classic Car Club that I'm involved with, they're having a display of classic cars in the middle of the town. Look at that beautiful sky. So, yesterday I cleaned the car and got it ready, and it wouldn't start. I had a real problem. In fact, I had to leave it for a few hours. Now I believe that I flooded it. I think I used too much choke when I needn't have done. But it's the first time in, well, as far as I can remember. I've had the car 14 years, and it's the first time it's ever happened. So, it's clean and ready to go, but will it start? Better find out. Now, I'm thinking I won't try any choke. Ignition on. Yeah. It started great. Okay, let's get it out. The lights are working. Right, well, we made it. So the car started and driven up here, and we're now waiting for, well, I'm waiting actually for the rest of the cars to arrive, and then we will be escorted, health and safety wise, down there, lower the barriers, and we go round into the centre of the shopping area there, where the cars will be parked up for the day. And then tomorrow I've planned to bring the Crossfire, so the Dodges today and the Crossfires tomorrow. I think tomorrow is mostly sports cars, it seems, but I didn't arrange the selection, so I think there's 12 cars each day. Anyway, we'll see what happens when we get in there. Right, so we finally got here and we're parked up.
Hang on a sec. Yeah, it came from Ipswich. Really? The boot release doesn't want to. You need a lift back? No, my wife's put it around later on. Well, for the time being anyway. Yeah. I'm going to give them a call. I don't need a push. Don't bring a car back tomorrow, will you? I've done something silly. What have you done? I've locked my keys in the boot. Oh. And now the boot release, it's a TBR, now the boot release doesn't want to work. I've got a crowbar, if you want one.
Right, well, the old Dodge has been sitting here for a couple of weeks, not being used, and I've been busy wearing out gloves, and tomorrow the Dodge is going to go to an event, and this event is for cars that only use this body shell. So it's basically 1946 to 48, that's 3 years, and it includes Chryslers, DeSotos, Plymouths and Dodges. A lot of coupes and saloons, obviously. Most of the ones that go to it are Chryslers, I have to say, and there's some absolutely beautiful Chrysler convertibles. Really, really beautiful. Plymouth convertibles, I think, as well. Maybe they're all Plymouth convertibles, but the Chryslers are coupes. Yeah, I guess so. We'll find out tomorrow. I went last year, it was excellent, and so I'm going to start the Dodge up now. And fill it up with fuel. Now, the last time I had a problem with this was because I think I flooded it by using the choke too much. So I'm going to try it without the choke. Yeah, that started better actually. There's no choke. I'm wondering actually if the choke... No. I'm wondering if the choke cable is not working properly. I don't know. Well, thankfully it's still pretty clean. There hasn't been so much dust of the project recently, so a bit of dust there. Well, let's see what the oil level is like as well. Right, well, we're here, and there were actually a whole lot of cars here a few minutes ago, and they've all gone to a museum, I think a Glenn Miller museum. But as we were a bit tired and we'd been there, we thought we'd stay and have a cup of coffee, which we did. And we're walking a dog at the moment. Well, one of us is. But the car went well, and it was a good drive down here. The car went faultlessly. Dog was happy in the back here. Nice hotel. Nice and quiet. Well, there's a lot of cars here now.
But it's still not cheap. Still not cheap. Yeah. Russell. Hello.